and welcome back to the Pizza Time Chronicles. We're live again. We're still going. Trust the process. Everybody, I'm here with my very, very great friend. This is my friend since freshman year of college. Everybody, this is Chanaly Rodriguez. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. And Chanaly, let everybody know who you are.
Hi guys, my name is Chanaly Rodriguez. I am currently a transfer student going back to Kutztown University as a communications major. I know.
Yes. And is there anything else that the people should know about you?
All right, so I am 21 years old. I'm from Allentown, PA, born and raised. I'm currently in a campaign. It's called Fight for Her. We are focusing on reproductive rights and mental health and making sure that any type of urban neighborhoods or any minority groups get access to healthcare. So, that's been keeping me busy all summer.
Absolutely amazing. And, today's episode is great because we're going to be talking about an issue that doesn't always get the best publicity. I won't say it's underrated because it shouldn't be, but it's not talked about. We're going to be talking about mental health. And mental health in America, or in this world in general, is not good. Especially with all that's going on, with everything that broke out. People are a little bit uneasy, but some people are affected by it worse. So my first question to you, Chanaly, is How important is the mental well-being of a person?
Great question. Just to start it off, I feel like if you don't prioritize your mental health, I feel like you can't be a capable human being in everyday life, going to work, going to school, because that is so much pressure on just not only the youth, but just an overall human being. Like as an adult, like you don't have healthy relationships if you don't have a healthy mental health. That can start from like an early age, from your child, just with the way you interact with family relations to your friends. A lot of people don't seek help. A lot of people feel that, either they're afraid that they're crazy or they don't have that family support. So if they don't seek help, then they're never going to get better. That affects how they work. That affects how they have relationships, intimate relationships, and especially partners. It's honestly, it's one of those cycles where it's like, if no one starts when they're young, or if no one gets taught of how to really prioritize yourself, it's gonna be the same thing over and over again. That's been passed down generations.
And when we look at overall well-being, we look at physical health, we look at mental health, and we look at emotional health. I truly feel that mental health is that thing that once that's down, everything else just goes with it.
Absolutely.
I feel like with physical health, you have a better chance to bounce back from it. But when it comes to mental, it's all up here. This is the thing that plays the most games. This is the thing that creates doubt. It creates motivation. It creates any unwanted feelings that you want to have. And what I wanted to ask you is, what's the best way to try to maintain a healthy mindset?
Right. Well, I'll bring it back to myself as a student who is also a worker, who has also been working throughout this whole summer. One of the good advice I always try to give myself is time to rest. If you are not getting enough sleep, your body starts to feel that way, but then your mind as well. You start to get tired. You start to have mood swings. You start to kind of lash out towards people, especially your family and people that you're around with. So it's always good to give yourself a rest, and especially if you are overwhelmed or on a lot of pressure, take a nap, go for a walk. Physical health is one of those remedies that a lot of people forget about, because it creates a lot of chemicals and hormones in your body that, it affects, like the hormones that makes you happy, that makes you feel healthy, refresh again. And that's one of the things where a lot of people can lack in, or a lot of people can forget that once you have that rest, you know, that helps tremendously before you even think about seeking therapy or medication.
And you know, when you think about mental health, unfortunately, we lose lives. We lose a lot of lives to mental health because they don't think about other things they can do. Everybody copes with it differently, especially with my past experiences with it. Um, Mental health right now, it's probably been more brought up because of the pandemic, because we're stuck at home, we're isolated from our friends and family. Do you think it's easy for somebody right now to fall into very toxic steps into getting into a bad mindset with their mental health?
Absolutely. I mean, there's people that may feel overwhelmed in a crowded room, but if you stay in your your house or your room for such a long period of time, that's when your mental health starts kicking in. You know, that's when you start thinking of past failures or accomplishments that never became. You know, you start doubting yourself, and those doubts can lead into a very dark road for you, especially when you're not interacting with somebody else or seeking help for it.
And when we talk about seeking help, you know, a lot of people, I mean, there's a huge problem right now with our health system. You know, a lot of people do want to seek help. And there's people who unfortunately cannot seek help because they understand that without insurance, without
Mm.
proper insurance, they cannot afford it. What do you feel is the best way to prepare yourself before you seek help? Before you decide, hey, I'm going to invest all this money because I truly need it?
So you brought up a really good point on our talk yesterday that before you want to seek professional help, you want to go through the steps of, you know, self-reflecting or self-love, and really ask yourself, you know, what exactly is bothering me, and would I be able to fix this on my own? I always say, if you do have a great family support system, you know, they're the first people that you should be able to turn to. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't have that support. So you'll look for mentors in the community, you know, you'll look for school counselors or administrators, or even in college and school. I think with just that support lacking, I think like the best way to really go through that step is, man, if you don't go through that physical health, well, I'll bring it back to myself for now. I started looking for figures that represent my community and that represent myself and how I see myself in the system. You know, I started looking into politicians and people who are running for office that are making healthcare as a priority. One of our Democrats, Susan Wild, who's going for Congress, she's making sure that not only healthcare is more accessible, but it's also medication and yes, medication and antibodies are also affordable for low-income families. So even if you want to seek that route of professional help, that is becoming more affordable for you.
And you know, when I look at mental health, you know, our mental health is almost developed based on our surroundings, what we expose ourselves to, and what we prevent ourselves from seeing. Do you think it's important for individuals who may be suffering poor mental health? Do you think it's important for them to see new things, to experience new things, to see if instead of feeling stuck, that these should just be out there and free their minds to something new that can possibly, you know, counter effect what they're feeling?
Right. I mean, that can be taken so many ways, like to experience something new. Like if you've been in your house for more than 8 hours, just the feeling of fresh air on your skin can make you feel a whole lot better. You know, seeing friends that you haven't seen in a while can definitely, you know, change your mood. Seeing your family, just spending time with people in general, just having that other interaction, you know, that kind of lets your body rest with your own thoughts and really listen to somebody else's. Another experience can be work. A lot of people rely on work to kind of get their mind off the reality of their home life. A lot of people work more than 40 hours just to kind of escape the reality. So there's a lot of experiences that people can go to, but again, I'll go back to, if you don't give if you don't give your body or your mind rest, you're always going to have that feeling of like anxiety or that exhaustion because you're just running on E for such a long time.
You know, I'm a sociology minor, and we did touch upon mental health at one point. And, you know, they said there's a correlation between those who live in poverty, those who live in rough areas, and their mental health.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I mean, even the way I grew up, or just a lot of people in my surrounding, is just when you come from a community that already lacks in funding and education, and then you have to deal with the affordability of health insurance. You know, a lot of people are raised that not only are they not good enough to go to school, now they have to be laborers in order to even feed their children. So it's like that mental health ties into, you know, how they even see themselves in society. And then that ties into their children. And it's that generational cycle that a lot of, especially this generation, has been trying to break, as in trying to be entrepreneurs and really have their own business, because without that aspect, they kind of lose their identity because society, unfortunately, doesn't represent them very well.
Okay. And then when I also think about mental health, especially when it came to me, it was about filling in gaps in our lives that we felt like if they weren't filled in with these things, we wouldn't be happy. Do you think people fill in these gaps with things they don't necessarily need, but they feel like, oh, this will make me happy?
Yeah, I mean, when you grow up, especially that financial aspect, people try to think that, you know, buying the most expensive things or the most expensive cars to just the clothing is gonna fill that gap that, you know, they are important. They do have value, which in fact is, they're not learning financial responsibility, you know. And when you don't have that knowledge, you're always going to be in that trap and cycle of being in debt, of owing money to the government, of having a low credit score. It's like we're taught that by the time we're 20, we should have our own homes, or no one teaches us when we're young about this. They just expect us to know at a certain age, and then again that system fails us, and then we're still in this cycle of, you know, warehouse jobs, being laborers. And it's just, if no one stops and listen and be like, hey, I could do better than this, we're never going to grow as a society, especially as a community of color.
And that's very true. And I mean, the thing is, there's also society standards into this. You know, they say by 21, you should have your license in your car. Some people don't get to that point. Some people take more time. Some people say by the time you're 25, you should have your first kid and you should be in a relationship.
Your first home.
That too. But some people don't get to that point, and see, and it creates that thing, is like in your head, it's like, I'm not doing enough. I'm not where I need to be in life.
That false narrative.
Exactly. And, you know, is it important for people to start breaking those society standards? It's
Yes.
like, this is my timeline.
Mm-hmm.
I respect my timeline, and I shouldn't be ashamed about it. Because you saw the video I made the other day, the trust the process video, which is,
Yes.
It blew up. You know, do you think it's important for people to start trusting the process and following their own timeline and believing in their own timeline?
Yes. So that's one of the downfalls when it comes to just having social networks and social media, is that, you know, while we are connected to just about everyone, like friends and family that we don't see on a daily basis, we also start to compare ourselves, where if you don't graduate within the next 4 years, then you're a failure. Or if you don't have a home by the time you're 25 or 23, then you're not doing enough. You're not working hard enough. You know, we start to compare ourselves with false narratives, not understanding that we all have our own struggles. You know, there are people who have to pay out of pocket just to go to school, just to take that one class. There's people who, not burdens, but have kids at an early age, that's their first priority. You know, there's people that have to work 40 hours just so that they can take care of their family. It's like, if we don't start breaking down these barriers and knowing our individual worth, then we're always going to be comparing and living out of a lifestyle that we can't even afford. And then again, like that mental health, like your self-esteem starts to deteriorate. And then we wonder like why, like those doubts start coming back in. And then when we teach our children that, it's just, it rolls back in. It's the same cycle all over again.
You know, going back to the beginning of this episode, you know, as I mentioned, mental health is heavily advocated for, but it's not publicly advertised as much compared to everything else that's going on. Why do you think that is? Why do you think mental health right now? I know mental health has become a concern, but just to say this pandemic never happened, just to say it's happened before the pandemic, why do you think it's not as advertised compared to everything else that's happening? Prioritized, I guess. I guess that's the word I'm looking for.
So I think mental health, or just health in general, has always been a priority, but it's never covered in the media because let's look at ourselves as individuals and in our own families. How many people can say that they feel comfortable coming to a family member about their mental health? How many people can say that they're comfortable actually reaching out to a school counselor about why they can't or why they don't feel comfortable going to class today? You know, it's those stereotypes that come from mental health, that people who have mood swings, or people who are sad or depressed or crazy. It's just, we don't, as much as we want to say that mental health is a priority, we tend to, I don't want to say that we're discriminating, but we tend to kind of make fun of those people who have those problems. And then later on, when a tragedy happens, we wish we could have helped them more. So in a way, like society, you know, we're getting better, but we're hypocrites for such a long time that we only see the warning signs when it's too late.
You know, I agree with you. You know, you and me both see it on social media. When someone jokes about a mental health issue, you know, and people react to it. And I'm more specifically aimed at Facebook because Facebook turned into meme central. That's what I like to say.
Right.
And a lot of this content is concerning. People don't reach out. They kind of just say, I agree with you, this is a mood. But why doesn't the conversation change? Like, are you okay? How can I help?
Right. Well, think about it this way. It's interesting how, and I feel like a lot of us have friends that people rather say that they have a problem or that they're upset or they're depressed on Facebook in such a generalized or public place, instead of just to one individual, to one friend, to one family member. And I always thought that was interesting because I'm like, listen, if I have such a personal problem, I wouldn't want a lot of people to know. But, you know, when people don't have that support behind them, or when they don't feel comfortable to come to someone, it's easier to talk to a stranger about your problems than someone that you know.
True.
And someone that knows you.
I mean, we have to admit it, you know, people deal with their mental health through humor. That's how and you know, there's a validation piece to it. Like you said, that they'd rather tell somebody that doesn't know them rather than someone who does.
Right.
And, you know, I just feel like mental health is very tricky. It's very tricky to approach because everybody goes through something different. There's so many forms of depression. There's so many forms of mental health issues that you may think you have one thing, but it's linked to another thing. Please do not diagnose yourself through Google, please.
Yes.
Don't, please. That's why we're suggesting please seek help so you're properly diagnosed. You know, it's just tricky because they advocate for something different. But overall, I think the overall message we're trying to say is the mental health issue in this world needs to be soon to be a top priority. I mean, yes, I get it. Everybody wants to get in the best peak physical condition they want. Everybody wants to be emotionally stronger. But mental health, to me, I feel that once that fails, everything is just collapsed. because you can't control anything else unless your mind's strong. So what do you think it's going to take for some people to develop a strong growth mindset?
What I can say is, in this time, you know, we're all in our homes, we're going through COVID, and a lot of people feel distressed of what's going on around us. And a lot of people are saying, well, what can I do? I'm a person of color, or I'm a person who goes to school, or I'm a person who works. What can I do to better assist the situation? And what I say is this: one, we have to learn to talk about uncomfortable conversations before we can even think about changing the people in power. You know, second, if you do believe that, you know, seeing representatives who do represent your community well, research. It doesn't take much to research who's campaigning, you know, who's looking out for your city, and who's making healthcare that top priority. I think people don't understand that sometimes, as basic they may say, you know, your vote does count. You know, especially this youth, especially the 18-year-olds, the 19, the 20, the 21s, you know, we have the majority to make that decision, to make that difference. And a lot of people, I feel like if they start going into whoever's in power, whoever's running, that itself is going to open a lot of doors for you, a lot of doors. But just for an individual who is just trying to better themselves in a mental health way, I say it's always best to just, you know, if you can't do it on your own, if you're struggling where you can't self-reflect, I always say seek professional help, or seek a family member that you have confidence in. Just having that other presence makes you feel like you're not alone.
That's great. Chanaly, we're going to wrap up this episode very soon, so I have a very important question for you.
Yes.
What is your favorite pizza, and where is that pizza from? You almost spit out your water.
No,
I saw that.
No, what I will say is, ever since I tried Tommy Boy's, I'm not gonna lie, I can't go back. You know, Kutztown has my heart. I think their bacon and ranch was like my top.
I still,
bacon and
you know,
ranch.
I don't know if you remember. I remember that one weekend I woke up early and I told you let's go to Tommy Boy's, because you never. I don't think we ever been there personally. I'm like, let's just go. That was our breakfast.
Yeah, I remember.
we both got up late and we're like, let's just go. But anyway, everybody, don't get lost in the pizza sauce. This is Chanaly Rodriguez. This is the Pizza Time Chronicles. Trust the process. Trust the process. Make sure you keep following the journey. We got more great episodes coming your way.
Thanks for having me, guys.
See ya.